The year was 2020. The world was locked down, everyone working from home, trusting their networks more than ever. In the sprawling digital metropolis of corporate America, IT departments were burning the midnight oil, keeping the lights on for a remote workforce. They thought their biggest worry was bandwidth. They were wrong. In the shadows of cyberspace, something ancient was stirring. Patient, methodical, Russian. The SVR Foreign Intelligence Service had been watching, waiting, planning. They weren't looking for a smash and grab job. No, this was going to be the heist of the century. And their target wasn't a bank vault or a jewelry store. It was trust itself. The target was SolarWinds Corporation, a Texas-based company that most Americans had never heard of. But in the world of enterprise IT, SolarWinds was everywhere. Their Orion network monitoring platform sat in the server rooms of Fortune 500 companies, federal agencies, and critical infrastructure operators like a digital nervous system. 18,000 organizations relied on SolarWinds to watch their networks, monitor their servers, and keep their operations running smooth. SolarWinds was the definition of a high-value target, not for what they had, but for where they could take you. Like a master key that opens every door in a hotel, compromising SolarWinds meant compromising everyone who trusted them. The company processed updates for Orion through their build pipeline, digitally signing each software package with certificates that customer systems would trust implicitly. It was a supply chain built on faith that would soon be shattered. The breach began sometime in October 2019, though nobody knew it yet. The attackers, later identified as APT-29 or Cozy Bear, the same crew that had tangled with the DNC back in 2016, gained initial access to SolarWinds through a combination of techniques that read like a textbook on modern cyber warfare. First, they compromised SolarWinds' software development environment. The exact initial vector remains classified, but evidence points to a multi-pronged assault. They likely exploited weak passwords and missing multi-factor authentication on critical developer accounts. Some reports suggest they may have leveraged CVE 2019-19781, a critical remote code execution vulnerability in Citrix application delivery controllers that SolarWinds used for remote access. Others point to spear phishing campaigns targeting SolarWinds employees with credential harvesting attacks. Once inside the network, the attackers moved with surgical precision. They used legitimate administrative tools like PowerShell and Windows management instrumentation to avoid detection, a technique security professionals call living off the land. They deployed custom implants and backdoors, including a sophisticated piece of malware called Teardrop that could execute arbitrary code while masquerading as legitimate system processes. For persistence, they created scheduled tasks and modified registry keys, embedding themselves so deeply in the infrastructure that removing them would require rebuilding entire systems from scratch. The crown jewel of their operation was infiltrating SolarWinds' software build pipeline. This is where the nightmare truly began. The attackers gained access to the systems responsible for compiling and digitally signing Orion software updates. Between March and June 2020, they injected malicious code into the build process itself, creating Trojanized versions of a file called solarwinds.orion.core.businesslayer.dll. The malicious code, dubbed Sunburst by security researchers, was a masterpiece of stealth engineering. It lay dormant for up to 2 weeks after installation, then began communicating with command and control infrastructure masquerading as legitimate SolarWinds telemetry. The C2 domains were crafted to look like normal Orion traffic using names like deftsecurity.com and freescanonline.com. Sunburst could download additional payloads, execute commands, and steal files, all while appearing to be routine network monitoring activity. For 9 months, from March to December 2020, every customer who downloaded and installed Orion updates was unknowingly installing a Russian backdoor directly into their most sensitive networks. The malware was digitally signed with legitimate SolarWinds certificates, bypassing security controls that were specifically designed to detect unauthorized software. It was the perfect crime, hiding in plain sight. The scope of the damage was staggering. 18,000 organizations downloaded the compromised updates, though the attackers were selective about which victims they pursued further. the Department of Treasury, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, the Nuclear Security Administration, the very agencies responsible for protecting America's national security had been compromised by foreign intelligence operatives. Private sector victims included Microsoft, Cisco, Intel, and dozens of other Fortune 500 companies. The attackers had access to sensitive government communications, proprietary business intelligence, and classified national security information. Conservative estimates put the cleanup cost at over $10 billion, but the true damage to national security and competitive advantage may never be fully calculated. Multiple cabinet secretaries were forced to resign. Congressional hearings stretched for months. The incident fundamentally changed how America thinks about supply chain security and the cyber threat from nation-state actors. The SolarWinds breach exposed fatal weaknesses in how organizations approach supply chain risk management. The attack succeeded because victims trusted their vendors implicitly without implementing controls to detect malicious behavior from legitimate software. Multi-factor authentication, network segmentation, and endpoint detection and response tools that might have limited the damage were either absent or poorly configured. Today, the lessons from SolarWinds have crystallized into concrete defensive strategies. Zero trust architecture assumes that no system or software can be trusted by default, requiring continuous verification of all network traffic and user activity. Enhanced software supply chain security includes software bills of materials, code signing verification, and sandbox testing of vendor updates before deployment. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency now mandates specific security controls for federal agencies, including network segmentation that would prevent lateral movement between critical systems. It's past midnight now, and the rain's still coming down on this city of ones and zeros. I've seen a lot of cases cross my desk over the years, but SolarWinds was different. It wasn't just about the money or the data. It was about trust and how easy it is to break. And the attackers didn't just steal secrets, they stole something more valuable, the confidence that the systems we depend on are actually secure. That's a wound that takes a long time to heal. But sometimes in this business, the biggest cases teach us the most important lessons. And sometimes that's enough to keep the lights on for another night.